Welcome to our podcast, Parenting by the Pint. Enjoy the show.
Greetings, Minivan Mafia. Lauren and I are longtime friends from Chicagoland that love getting together to chat about life, kids, family, and beer.
Each week, we'll feature a brewery and sample at least 2 of their beers.
We'll also discuss a variety of topics ranging from parenting, pop culture, travel, marriage, and just about anything else that comes to mind.
Hey, welcome everybody. Sorry to make you wait on this one. Jeez.
And, some stuff going on over here.
Dude, I came down with the plague like a week ago, and apparently it just completely knocked me out of commission. We are finally able to get together and record as I inch closer to normal health.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping for, right before the holidays.
Yeah, right? I hope that I just got it out of the way, and now I'm going to be good. Let's say 2 months. 2 months of wellness would be great. That would kind of
good. We'll knock on
get
wood
me
here.
past a January vacation I have planned that we'll get to eventually. Yeah, I hope this is it for a while. I'm gonna need a break from illness after this one. This one hit me hard.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. Well, at least you got it out of the way before the holidays. That's always my positive is let's get sick before the holidays, before a big trip, before I have to do things that I can't reschedule. So that you got it in.
Agreed. and we're about T-minus a week since I started feeling sick. And no one else in my family has appeared to come down with said plague.
A plus. That's good.
So either they all had it before me and we had really long incubation periods, because I did have both of my children went through little bouts of illness where they had a couple days where they didn't feel well, but they were 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So I sort of was like, did I really catch something from one of them, or is this completely new? And
who knows?
I still can't answer that question. I don't know, because no one else got sick, which is great. Hopefully I just didn't get anyone else sick.
Yeah, that would be a plus. That's the best possible outcome here. So let's hope for that.
Yes. So let's move on from that, because that's what I'm trying to do.
Let's drink some beers.
Let's drink some beers. So we're going to drink 2 beers from Seedz Brewery, which I guess I should have looked up the official town that this is in. Union Pier. Yeah, because I went there on our weekend away in Michigan. We stayed in a little house. A little house. That's not true. Stayed in a very, very nice house right off of Lake Michigan in not Union Pier, in New Buffalo, which is another town. They're all kind of mixed together there. Very so close. That's why I was like, I got to check the actual address of this place. But my husband and I made an appearance at Seedz and had a couple beers and grabbed a few things while we were there. And we're going to drink 2 of those things right now. And we're going to start with Farmer's Dream, which is an American Pale Ale. I don't know that we've had an APA in a while.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do that. So let's crack this baby open.
All right.
Smells good.
It does. It's got a good
I'm very pleased that I can smell it, because I had a stuffy nose for a few days. See? That was part of my plague.
You are recovering.
Yes. This is a sign of wellness.
That you can smell. Yeah, it's kind of hazy.
I know. It does have a little bit of a haze to it. I was holding it in my hand here, and I can barely see my fingers through it.
Yeah, I can see a shadow.
Yes, they're there.
They're there. It's got a nice head to it. It's got a nice aroma.
It's very crisp.
Oh, it's very crisp.
A little, we have gotten so accustomed to drinking double IPAs and triples and all that stuff that whenever I go back to drinking a traditional, even an American pale ale, I sometimes forget how simple and clean and yet has that little spicy hoppiness that I enjoy so much.
Yeah, it's got a great hop flavor to it. It's nice and crisp. This is something that I would drink like ice cold outside on like a nice day.
Yeah.
Like this is a very clean, crisp, like it's a little under 5%, I think, so it's a reasonably sessionable, 4.5% only. So this is a good, just a great, daily drinker even. It's not a high ABV. It's nice and clean. It's got a great flavor to it. It's not overpowering, and it's just a really clean, crisp, ale. This is good.
This is really good. But before you dive into all of your Seedz history, which I am looking forward to, I will tell a brief story about my Michigan weekend that I just want to share. Let's call it a public service announcement. That's what I'd like to. This experience is for all of you out there so that you don't make the same mistakes that I made.
That's good. It's a learning experience. All right, give us your PSA.
So, we stayed in this lovely house, and it had a hot tub, and it's always been, and I admit that this is short-sighted on my part, it's always kind of been my dream to sit in a hot tub on a cold night and have a drink and just kind of enjoy the evening. Hot tub, cool air, the whole situation. Well, a couple of things. First of all, you're really not supposed to drink a whole lot of alcohol while in a hot tub because, the combination of alcohol and the hot temperature of the water, it's not good for your body. So don't do that. So that's just the first thing I'm going to say. Also, my youngest child decided at some point it was a good idea to turn the hot tub to maximum temperature. So it wasn't just hot. It was like 105 degrees in there, which is very hot, it's hot for just sitting for too long. Okay. So, my husband and I decide, kids are in bed. We're going to grab a beer. We get like a very rare Bourbon County from a previous year and
high
pour
ABV.
that thing.
I'm reading high ABV here.
And sit down in the hot tub, and we're looking at the stars, and we're talking about the house and, whatever. And at one point I'm sitting there next to him, and I just go, wow, I'm really hot. I think I should get out. And he's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Let's get out. And I got out of this hot tub. It's like 35 degrees outside. And I literally sat down on the ground.
Oh my gosh.
Outside in the cold and was like, I don't feel very well. And I came inside. We got all of our, stuff. And I put a towel on, and I get inside, and I'm like, I need to lay down. And I just laid down on the floor.
Not even made it to the bedroom.
Just no, I didn't.
Straight on the floor.
Was up a flight of stairs. I would have never made that. I just laid down on the floor for maybe 10 minutes before I felt well enough to make the trek upstairs to the bed, where I then laid down for probably half an hour. But yeah, so the thing that I would do not Matthew Perry yourself in a hot tub, ladies and gentlemen. I say that half jokingly, but half serious. There is a real risk to raising your body temperature too high and drinking alcohol. You should not do that.
Not a safe combination. Yes.
Don't do that. So
now you learned something.
Yeah, I won't ever be doing that again. And I did recover fully from my little experience. I think I felt more nauseous than anything else. My husband was worried I was going to pass out. I don't think that would have happened. I think I felt sick to my stomach. So it was really more that for me, whenever I feel sick to my stomach or have in the past, and I know people joke about this, like when they get drunk, you lay down on the floor to stop the world from spinning and things like that.
I get that.
And for me, that mechanism works very well. The laying flat on my back, even in my bed, if I don't feel well, settles me. So like I was just like, I'm gonna lay down because I know that I'm gonna feel better if I do this for a couple minutes. And that was and it did work. It was just unexpected.
I'm glad that you managed to feel better relatively quickly, and it all worked out.
That
So
was a fun time. What a great relaxing weekend.
But you brought us some beers back from it, so win-win. Well,
so tell
you
me
learned
about
something.
Seedz Brewing. Yeah.
All right, so Seedz, I've heard of them before. They're relatively new to the market. Union Pier, like Kara mentioned, they're very into using locally sourced ingredients, so they use all locally sourced ingredients, 100% local grains and hops grown from local farms. Definitely everything is from the Midwest that they use to brew their beer. So, the owner, Ryan, he first started brewing like everybody else as a home brewer in his cousin's basement. He actually attended St. Xavier, which is in the Chicago suburbs. So that's where he went to college and started his passion for brewing beer. Then after college, he actually joined another brewery, Burnham Brewing in Michigan City, right in Indiana, right close to kind of, on the way from here essentially to the New Buffalo area. But not far. So then he had dreams of opening his own brewery. So he bought, or he found space in an old building where they wound up, used to have some restaurants and an old tiki bar. So, he's revitalizing some old entertainment venues. They were originally slotted to open in February of 2020. We all know what happened in February of 2020.
I remember that month very well.
So they did not open in February of 2020. They did open, however, in February of 2021. So it pushed them back a year, but they did, stick to it and wound up opening a year later. One of their first beers was called Sleeping Sickness, and it was a beer brewed with chamomile tea, I'm assuming in honor of the previous year and why they did not open. They're very big on old kind of German beer styles. They pride themselves on foam and a good head. If you get a beer poured there, some of their beers, they say, take 5 minutes to pour to perfect the head of foam on that beer. So they are very much into that and the old styles of brewing. They do not do flights. Their Wi-Fi password is actually no flights, which I found funny, but also entertaining.
That is funny.
But you can do tasting, of different beers to find what you're looking for. So so they've only been open for a few years. And they do have a little bit of a tie to the Chicagoland area since he started brewing when he was in college here.
That's cool.
So they bottle or they can everything up there, and they don't have a huge distribution area as of yet, but obviously it's not that far from us. So if anybody's up, and lots of people in this area go up that area for summer and things and all kinds of travel weekends. So if you're ever in the Union Pier, Michigan area, check them out.
Yeah, give it a shot. We did sit and have a beer at the brewery, my husband and I. They have a really, really nice outdoor area. It was warmer than our evening outside later, I can't remember if it was the following night or the same night. But we were there much earlier in the day regardless. And they have an awesome like fire pit and everything. So even being outside, and it was cool, it wasn't cold where you were sitting. You could still reasonably be outside at that period, and this was a few weeks ago, probably a month ago now, that we were there, and I felt really good about being outside. They have a big outside area. Their indoor space is pretty small. If we had not been able to sit outside, it would have been hard to find a place to sit other than maybe at the bar, one of us, and the other one kind of just standing there. So that was nice. It was nice. It was a good time. It was really close to the house, which was great. And we were able to grab a few things. So no complaints.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So, yeah, if you're in the area, I'll check them out. I'm sure I'll be up in the area at some point.
It is my hope that you are. I mean,
Yes.
hopefully we're going to get out there
Yeah,
at some
hopefully
point
we'll be
again.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds like a great goal to have. I always like to have
I
something to look forward to.
agree.
So, all right, well, let's continue drinking our pale ale here and move on to more kid talk.
Let's talk about a kid topic. We've kind of been all over the place lately. So,
Yep.
Let's circle back and remember what we began with. And but this is, older kids and definitely
Kids
relevant
keep
for
growing.
us. So we're going to talk about online gaming tonight because, that is a thing. That is a thing that is very common, especially when you start to get into that almost a teenager and is a teenager age range. A lot of kids like to play video games. Video games are very, very popular hobby now. And being online while doing it is super common. People play, that's how they socialize. A lot of young people, not just teenagers, socialize
Into
in
adult
online
people.
games.
Yeah, exactly. Like our husband's age people
I was
do.
gonna
That's what
say, I
they
mean,
do.
my
Yeah.
husband still will play video games online with his friends about once a week. And it's a way for him to connect with some friends that he has played video games with for a very long time, but doesn't happen to live all that close to.
Yeah.
And they're playing games that you really only can play online. I mean,
Sure.
in our college days and high school days, video games were a little bit more common. Oh, I have an Xbox or I have a PlayStation, and you come over and you play together in one spot.
Sure.
And we've moved away from that. I think far more often people play together online.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, even a lot of times whatever game you're playing on whatever platform you use, like computer gaming is far more popular now than it was, I think, a few years ago.
Certainly. Yeah.
However, Xbox and PlayStation, you play with people online too. So, so it's all platforms you can join online games. So,
yes,
even on the Switch, on everything.
That's what I was gonna say, is that our first kind of foray into online gaming with our kids was on the Nintendo Switch. The Switch has an online feature that you can sign up for where you're able to play somebody who also has a Switch. You're able to play cooperatively with them or competitively. There's no chat feature built in to like the Switch itself. So like you can't chat with somebody that you're playing with online. There are games that have that feature, but the Switch does not have that feature. So it's almost in a way a good way to introduce your kids to online gaming, because they interact with maybe people they don't know, but they're not actually talking to them quite yet. And I think this is what you and I were going to kind of hit on as we progress through this conversation, is when you do start to interact with these strangers, what does that mean? And what does that entail? And as parents, how do we handle that? And for me, my kids started on the Switch, and the only person they really played with was my nephew, and they would call him sometimes on my phone, or now they're a little bit older, on my son's phone, and they would just talk on the phone while they play. And they would play a variety of games, mostly Fortnite. They played a lot of Fortnite. That was kind of, like I said, my kids' first real like competitive online game that had chat.
Yeah, my son's 9. He still does play Fortnite when his friends play Fortnite. So we control on the Switch who he can and cannot allow to be friends with on there. So his Switch is far more locked down than his PlayStation is.
Yeah.
So we have to put in a password to accept any friend requests on his Switch on the games. So he does have a number of people that he is friends with that he still does play Fortnite with. The thing is, though, that like these freaking kids put their names as nothing like their names. Like I wouldn't even know that I'm like, is this David? And he's like, yeah, that's David. And I'm like, how do you know? Like,
I know,
it's
right? Well, even
like
my
A, B,
kids.
C, D, 1, 2, 7, 6. Like, I don't know who this is. This could be some random stranger. Like, I literally am like, you need to ask him for his username before I will accept this and verify that this matches.
I know, right?
But yeah, they're all over the place. But so that was how we got into, at least started as well, with just playing with other people was on the Switch, but only friends that we accepted on the Switch. So yeah.
Yeah, same here. That was the beginning for us. My kids also still play Fortnite, not quite so much as they used to. I think it's because I think it's because they were looking for a different type of challenge for a video game. It's this very specific type of game, and they just don't always want to play that type of game. So they go back and forth with it. They do play it still, but it's kind of in waves for them.
Sure.
They've been on a huge Minecraft kick lately.
Oh, really?
My kids both have their own Switch. We have two, and they both have Minecraft. And then at some point, mysteriously, I'm not exactly sure why, my husband decided that they should get it on the computer. We have two computers, desktop computers. My husband's current computer is one, and his old computer we set up for the kids when he got the new one and like 2 years ago, so that they could play video games with him sometimes on the other computer, or they could play video games on it without using his. And so that we sort of established, and at some point, like I said, without my consent,
input, yeah.
It was decided that they would play Minecraft on the computer. But unlike playing Minecraft on the Switch, you can join private servers of other people. Well, you can join these public servers that have basically everyone in the world on them.
Yeah, whoever wants to be playing this game at this time. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a very long conversation with the kids about open servers, which is what happens on Minecraft, and while I was, not really for the idea of opening this game up to them, the conversation really centered around, you have to realize that a percentage of the people that you are playing this game with are adults.
Yeah.
They're not children. They are not 9-year-olds. They don't go to your school. They're adults, and adults may or may not be interested in just having fun with you on Minecraft.
Yeah.
And really, we kind of just put it all out on the line. This was an opportunity, as negative as I have been about, downloading this game, for us to initiate the conversation with our kids that, like, there are going to be times where you're going to interact with adults and it's not going to be positive. They could be mean. They could say really offensive things. They could be perfectly nice and normal. That is obviously a possibility. Everyone
those aren't the ones you have to warn people about. That's
and I'm like,
the other one. Yeah.
You could also run into somebody that's trying to get information from you.
Yeah.
They could try to get personal information. Where do you live? Where do you go to school?
What's your name?
How old is your brother? What's your mom and dad's names?
Characteristics. Yeah.
And regardless of how old you think they are or how old they say they are, you should not be giving out that information. And and then there's sometimes you're going to run into people that are trying to, I'm going to use the word groom because that word is important. But in essentially what they're doing is they're going to turn you against your loved ones and turn you toward them, which is a strategy that people use online with kids. And one day you're going to go into the chat and you're going to see XYZ person and they're going to be like, hey, how was your day? And you're going to say, oh man, my mom yelled at me because I didn't put my laundry away. And they're going to say, yeah, moms really suck sometimes. And you're going to go, yeah, I don't know why she was so mad. And that conversation could turn into a conversation where you start to get mad at me and you start to trust this person with your private life. And I know this sounds advanced, but I had this conversation with both of my kids and was like, you have to understand there are times where they're having those conversations with you because they are trying to lure you. And as long as you realize that strangers are strangers and that you treat them that way and that you don't want them to know you can play the game with them. Here, you want this rock I picked up? You can have it. Yeah. Whatever. But that's fine.
Everything stays in the game, and your real life is not. Yeah.
Yeah. Even as adults, if you're playing an online game with someone or you're having an online conversation with a stranger, you're not going to go and tell them the private details of your life.
Yeah. Don't do any of that. Yeah. You don't click on anything that you get sent in chats. Like links are another thing. Like,
oh, that's a good point.
So, and that's not just games, but now that all of our kids have phones and things like that, and our kids have their email associated to their phones and stuff like that, just internet safety in general, I feel like we definitely went through the like, you don't share your full name, your school, your address, any personal information. You don't talk about your family or anybody else's names or what town you live in or anything. You never share a picture of anybody. All of that stuff, but also on incoming side, like not even just games, but texts, emails, chats, like you don't click on anything ever. My daughter doesn't game, but she has a phone and a bunch of her friends have apps like Snapchat or WhatsApp or things like that. And so they just send her a link to sign up for things like that. And I'm like, no, like that you need to be aware that
we're not doing that.
You're not clicking on any link that someone sends you unless you clear it by me. Like, I'll send her a link to Amazon or something like that. But like we do not trust when there's things to click on. We don't download any other apps or sign up for things without us talking about it, anything like that. So her thing isn't really gaming because it's just not her style.
Online interaction, though.
Any sort of internet type things, there was a friend of a friend who had gotten her phone taken away because she was talking to someone she wasn't supposed to be talking to. I don't know all of the details of what happened, but it was a good learning point. Like, you don't just start talking to people if you don't know who they are. You never share personal information with anyone unless it's a family member that you've already saved in your phone and you know who they are. Like, you don't do any of that. And it's a very broad kind of thing that does definitely apply to gaming. I think the thing with gaming, and our son is just kind of tiptoeing into that, and he's more interested now in some PlayStation games, but like playing with larger groups of people. He's got some sports games and he wants to do like a Call of Duty type game that you would interact with other people. And a lot of what it is more so for that for us is you're going to hear a bunch of things that adults say when playing video games.
Right.
Like that. This is not a bunch of kids. Potentially, some days there might be kids, there might be a group, but you could be with 45-year-old men who are drinking and who knows
and
what,
cursing and calling each other names.
Exactly. So that when you can't control the room or the party or the group or whoever you're playing with, you have to be okay. And different families are going to have a different age for when that becomes okay for them to hear anything.
Right.
And that is something that everybody has to decide, kind of, if I can't control the environment my child is in, am I okay with that and trust that they're not going to repeat that or, then be like that with other people because, they're being berated by an adult. When is that going to influence them? And, do we think it's going to? So those are kind of the concerning things about some of these games because, I don't know, frankly, the target demographic for video games nowadays is like 30 to 50-year-olds. Like,
right.
It's like there's a lot of men that's who they play it, but they're doing it and they're having a beer and they're sitting and they're playing with some of their friends, and this 9 or 10 and 12-year-olds jump in. Like, they're not going to tailor what they say to you. So just be prepared for those kind of things. So
I think that's a really excellent point. You brought up like Call of Duty and that type of game where you have a very like open world in terms of who you're going to interact with. And at one point I had told you, I was like, oh, I'm going to try to find something to suggest to you for your son because he wants to play Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And the first game that came to mind was a Star Wars game called Battlefront.
Yep.
And I mentioned it to my husband because my husband does play video games. That's not his style. He doesn't really play Call of Duty type games. But I mentioned it to him. He had very little input as a result.
I
was like, well, what about Battlefront? And he said, well, Battlefront is pretty good and people really enjoy it, but you have to be 13 to have an account. Okay. And so either you create an account and you allow your child to play on it.
Yep.
Or you set up an account for them when they are 13.
Yeah.
And in a stroke of, I don't know, luck, my nephew wanted to play Battlefront with my son. My son is 12. Yeah. And my husband, again, at a time when I was not home, he's going to walk through the room at some point. I'm going to be saying that. Decided to set up an account for my son, and unbeknownst to him, gave his real age, gave his real date of birth when he was setting up the account, and my son is not able to play. He can play, but he cannot play online. You can play, but you can't play online until you're 13.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So my son was very upset and wanted him to reload the game. I wanted him to reload the game, but the purchase of the game is linked to whatever account you set up because they don't want multiple accounts playing on the same game. And it was like a $20 or $30 game. So
we're not buying it again.
I'm not doing that.
Sorry, dude.
So we are literally just going to wait until he turns 13, and then he can start playing Battlefront with my nephew. That is it. That's the
all right, good to know.
The outcome. So take that as you will. I think that
there probably are quite a few age restrictions, I would imagine, on some of these setups.
Yes,
which makes sense.
Yes. One thing I will say is that both of my kids asked for Minecraft to be able to play on the computer, and which results in one of them playing on my husband's computer, which brings up an entirely different set of questions because my husband's account is an adult account.
Doesn't have any restrictions.
Everything on his computer is unrestricted. So hypothetically speaking, if my kids were unsupervised, my 9-year-old could go onto my husband's computer, open an adult game. Those exist. Does my husband play those games? First of all, that's none of my business. It's his computer.
He plays what he plays. You read and listen to what you listen to and watch and read. Like, it is what it is. Yeah.
Do I believe that is what he is consistently doing? No, because I sit there with him most of the time when he's on his computer and we just chat while he's playing games.
Yeah.
And it is not what I am observing him playing. But that doesn't mean...
I'm sure they're there somewhere.
They don't exist. They do exist.
Yes.
And even if my husband doesn't own those games, my child has the freedom to download those because he is on my husband's account.
Right, so he has no restrictions. Yep.
There are no restrictions on there.
Yeah.
So for the most part, we have to trust that they are not going to do those things, or we have to supervise them at all times. We do a little mixture, There are times where one of us will kind of sit down there and observe or pay attention. If my son is going to play Minecraft, I won't police the time that he is doing that because he is playing on a private server with my other son and my nephew. They're playing the three of them. And I won't just sit there and watch them play Minecraft. It is really dull to do that.
It is. It's very boring to watch someone else play Minecraft.
A lot of times
I'm just saying,
it is.
It's not. Yeah.
A lot of times there is nothing going on that will interest you at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's not exciting to watch.
Yeah.
How's that?
I don't really want to have to supervise every second. The beauty of my kids getting older is that I have more freedom and I don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I like the idea of being able to sit on the couch and watch a football game by myself because my kids are playing video games
doing
downstairs.
something else. Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Even if it's just for 45 minutes. It's quiet alone time that I didn't get 3 years ago. That didn't exist. And so I want to trust them. We have had very few potential breaches of trust, although my 9-year-old did download skins on Minecraft on my husband's computer. They were free, which is why he was able to do it.
Yeah.
And skins are just like outfits for your characters. It's just like
Fortnite. Yeah. They have skins on Fortnite. Every new campaign, they get new skins.
Exactly.
Fortnite's rated for 13-year-olds and up, actually.
Yeah.
And our kids have been playing that for significantly less since they were significantly younger than that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, the ratings, and like it's also what are your kids comfortable with? Like, I'm not going to let them play Grand Theft Auto because there's way more inappropriate crap in that than there is. Even in, like, Call of Duty is very violent, which I get that. And the people playing are, you know, cursing and
there's a factor there. I respect that.
But, like, and some kids are not okay with violence, and some kids are, and some kids might be more influenced by it. Me and my kids sit and watch, like, Criminal Minds, Law and Order, Bones. They see dead bodies and people shootings and people getting blown up, like, and they doesn't phase them a bit. Like,
and they're not like, I want to make a dead body.
No,
like,
they're like, I want to investigate and who killed this person. I want to find the murderer. And I'm like, all right, well, you'll be a forensic person, but not a, shooting person. So
hopefully,
I
think we could have an entire conversation about like the influence that the adult level of these games, and you could certainly go and spend, and we've talked about that impact in movies. We've talked about that a couple of times, and what's age appropriate, quote unquote. And I've heard arguments about video games, and I definitely do not want to come across as one of those people that believes that a violent video game makes a violent person. There isn't a lot of evidence to support that.
But if you're a violent person to begin with, I think that's a different
decide
story.
I want to play a violent video game because I love violence.
Yes.
And I think that isn't where, your child is coming from.
No.
But I think like it's one thing to make the argument that the flow goes one direction, where maybe a violent person wants to play a violent video game. But I don't necessarily subscribe to the philosophy that it flows the other way. That if you are watching something with violence or playing something with violence, it means you are going to be more violent.
No, I don't. And I don't believe that necessarily. I also think, though, that some people get obsessive over certain things. If all that my child wanted to do when he came home from school is play one violent video game until he went to bed every day, that to me would be a problem, because that is their sole influence outside of school then. And that to me is a little different than, I'm going to go play this for an hour, whatever, every couple of days, and then do other things. I'm going to play a board game. I'm going to go, read a book.
Watch a show. I'm going to go to my friend's house. I'm going to play this physical game.
If the only thing that you do and you become obsessive over it, then that's a different story. But if it's just one of many things that you do as an extracurricular activity, that would be that anything you watch or see or do or read would mean that's what you're going to turn into. And I think that our kids obviously are still kids, and they're still developing and learning and all of that. But they have gotten to a point that they also know that a game is pretend. A movie is pretend, a TV is pretend. Like all of these things we see or what they're doing or influencing on a game or any of that, this is not the real world, and there's not the consequences in this game that there would be in the real world. And our kids have the cognitive ability to do that. Now, my oldest, we don't let him just have free range of what he's going to watch because he is far more influenced even by like mean characters on TV. His mood is affected far more by things he watches than our other two children. And I think that's because cognitively, he does model after what he sees far more than what our neurotypical children do. So I can see a difference. And I'm not going to go into like, this is why the people who shoot up schools often have mental, issues, but I can see it. Like in my house, I can see that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. That's a whole other can that we're not going to open. But you're 100% correct. The impressionability of the person
has to know
absolutely has to be considered. You're totally right. Yeah. If you let your older son watch violent TV and it was all he did all day, every day, he would
probably act out violently. Yeah.
That behavior is appropriate.
Yes.
Because
exactly.
That is how he interacts with television.
Yeah.
And so you have to treat that situation differently than you would treat a situation with your 9-year-old son, who you can sit down and have a conversation with about, here is the logical explanation for why this happened in that TV show.
Here's the reasoning. Here is the reality. We often say, because they'll be like, why is that guy not in jail for something dumb? And I'm like, because it's TV. Like, this is not the real world. If you did that, XYZ, whatever it is, in the real world, you'd be going away. Like, and they're like, yeah, no, that makes sense. And I can reason with the twins. My oldest doesn't have the cognitive ability to do that. So that's why we do very much have to, differ in what each is allowed to watch and do. But I guess my main point is you just have to know your kids. Like if they're more impressionable and they will be influenced easier by certain things, then you have to be more strict in what you allow them the freedom to do. And we do, like, we check their search histories on things. Obviously I'm not sitting next to them watching them play games necessarily, but I do check in, like their doors need to stay open and I walk by and I see what they're doing, or if they are talking to somebody, I'm like, okay, I pay attention to who that is and what's going on. I'm not sitting by them all the time. My son right now, it's football season. He's playing Madden more than anything else right now. So it's really mostly football that he's playing. But
that's its own type of violence.
Yeah, that's its own yelling and screaming at the TV about your team missing a touchdown. So
certainly I can feel that.
still a lot of cursing and things like that, but not so much killing. But yeah, I think a lot of it is know your children, pay attention to what they're doing, look to see if their attitude is changing. Be aware of if they're more moody or if things like that. And if they only want to do one activity, then that to me is a concern too. Like then they're becoming obsessive over something. Most typical children aren't. It's just one in many activities that they're looking to do.
Oh yeah.
So
now I will say
interacting with people.
Yeah, I will say my older son definitely leans toward doing one or two things in the span of like a day off versus my younger child, who will kind of vary activities a little bit more. I think that's an attention thing sometimes too. My older son, hypothetically, and I've probably joked about this, would probably watch YouTube all day if I allowed that. That isn't to say that he would reject other options. The one thing I will say about him is that, sure, if I turned on YouTube and was like, hey, watch YouTube for a while, take it easy, take a load off, rest your mind or whatever, he would watch and maybe 2 hours would go by. But at the end of that 2 hours, I could walk up to him and go, hey, I made brownies. Have a brownie. Let's sit and talk for 15 minutes. And then you got to do your clarinet homework. And he'd be like, that sounds great. And he would like do those things. And then I would be like, why don't we watch a movie together instead of watching YouTube for another 2 hours? Yeah. And he would be like, I would like to watch this movie. And we'll pick a movie and we'll watch it together.
So he would be willing to do something. It's not that he has to. He's not obsessing over it. My son's the same. Like, if I let him play Madden for 3 hours, he probably would sit and do it.
Certainly do it, right?
But if I'm like, hey, come down and watch a movie with us, he'd be like, okay, and he'd come down. Like, he's just doing it because it's occupying his time, and no one has interjected to be like, here's something else you could do.
Alternative, right? But when the alternative is suggested, like I said, even my older son, who is definitely, I mean, I will say he's becoming more of an adult. And as an adult, you get into a groove of doing things. How many adults do you know that binge watch television shows?
Oh my God, all of them at some point in their life.
Everybody. Everybody does that. Well, how is that different watching 5 or 6 hour-long episodes of a television show over the span of a day or two? That is no different than my almost teenager wanting to watch YouTube for 3, 4, or 5 hours.
It's totally the same.
It isn't to say that that's advisable.
Right.
I mean, you probably shouldn't sit and do that as an adult.
You probably shouldn't sit and watch TV for 5 hours. But
but a lot of people do get into that mental mindset at times where they're just like, I just need to sit here. I need to like turn off my brain. This is a form of relaxation for me. And I do respect that to a point. Obviously, everything in moderation, right?
Yep.
Everything. Alcohol.
Everything
television,
in moderation.
Online games. Like, let's go easy, guys. No, don't overdo it. Okay, let's vary it up once in a while.
No,
but
that's good. Yeah, I think that our kids are an interesting age, because they did go through the whole we're shut down, you can't leave your house thing for a period. And they were older, so they didn't that wasn't their first opportunity to make friends, but I do think a lot of them still wound up with the mindset like, I'm going to interact with people from my house, and that's still somewhat happening. Plus, they're not old enough to drive themselves anywhere. They're not,
I know, wait till that happens.
Right? But like, I hope that they like go places and do that and see people in person. I will say that it drives me crazy, and this happened a couple of times, when there's 3 boys in my house and they're all just playing the same video game next to each other. I'm like, interact with each other in real life, people. Like, talk to each other. Don't just sit and stare at your Switch and like play in the game. Like, do something. You're next to each other. Like, I get it if you're interacting and you want to play when you're all at separate houses as a way to kind of connect, but when you're all in the same place, just do something. Like, together.
My little
that's
one,
a pet peeve of mine.
My youngest has a kid who lives kind of around the corner from us, and they both play Roblox. And my son will go to this kid's house and they will sit next to each other and play Roblox for hours, if allowed. If no interruptions occur, they would just sit there for hours and play Roblox. And they're playing the same game and they do talk to each other.
Sure, they interact slightly, but they're on different ends of the world. And
I 100% agree with you. As much as I appreciate my son going to another kid's house, when I know that he is spending every minute of his time there playing that game, I'm kind of like, ugh. Isn't there something else?
Like, come on, guys. So, all right, let's open this Oktoberfest. And evaluate this. I've had 100%. I've had a few Oktoberfests this fall.
Yes, my husband and I agree. Geez, they fill these cans to the top.
I know, they're literally.
It's like I open this thing and it like shoots out at me.
So what have you and Mike agreed?
My husband and I have agreed that it's not too late to drink Oktoberfest.
I think that
at this phase. We're still in a safe area.
Yes.
Yeah. This is not too old to drink.
I agree.
That was our consensus when we bought this 4-pack. I was like, this is okay, right? We can buy an Oktoberfest and drink it in November, right? And he was like, yeah, totally.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. This is it's mild. But it's got a good flavor to it.
It's so nice sometimes to drink a pale ale of some sort, something that's got bitterness to it, and then shift gears and drink something
flavor.
that's like sweet and malty.
And even malty. Almost Oktoberfests are, but that's definitely coming out to me in the flavor 100%. Is the maltiness to it.
Yeah,
you go from the bitterness of the hops to like the smoothness of the malt, and it's
so refreshing.
Such a different taste. Like your taste buds are getting all kinds of things today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I really enjoy that. This is good. I had drank a little. I think I had shared a can of this with my husband before we recorded today, and at some point after buying this, and was pleased. It has been a little while since I've had an Oktoberfest. So I'm not going to sit here and put it next to anything else. But
no, I couldn't do that. Yeah, no, this is
good.
It's
good. I really like it. I'm very happy.
It's got a good flavor. It's very malty. It's a mild. It's not like sometimes we drink a lot of beers that are like really bold and like you can only drink so many of it, so much of it. This is a very easy drinking, smooth kind of beer that is more. We go from like the crisp, clean, sit outside when it's sunny to like the nice malty, nice mouthfeel, like sit outside by a fire type beers. That's what we got going on here, in my opinion.
I think that's a really good description. Totally.
Yeah,
this is a good fire pit beer.
This is a good fire pit beer. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Fantastic.
Well,
I've enjoyed both of these.
Yeah, that was great.
Up for trying some more when we make our way up there, but these were both very tasty beers that are very much exactly what they were going for. So
totally. Yep.
Yeah.
Seedz Brewing, you guys, check them out.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yep. Catch you next time.
Bye. Thanks everyone for listening to the latest musings from Parenting by the Pint.
Be sure to find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to us wherever you find your podcasts.
Have a great week, and cheers to you all.